morning. Hello, Flosstube. It's MsWillette from MsWillette the Switch Stitcher, coming back with Flosstube number 2, or I want to call it part 2 of Flosstube number 1. I came to you on September the 12th, which was my birthday. I launched my first Flosstube video, and I hope that if you came across it, that you would watch and see something that you like, and that you would subscribe, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. It's such a pleasure to be a part of the Flosstube world. I had a number of items that I wanted to share that I didn't get to share in my first video because I didn't want to make it too long, and I hadn't planned to come back until October, but after I ended the first video, I thought, oh, I forgot to mention that, and I forgot to show that. And so I wanted to come back today to share some of the other items that I had stitched over the summer that I had prepared to show in my first video, in my introduction. And so I have those here today, and so I want to share those with you. I'll make myself a few notes because I did forget to tell you a little bit more about myself. My name is Willette. I lost my beloved Andre 2 years ago, and preparing or seeking healing has propelled me into this journey of stitching and of launching the Flosstube video. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I am a registered nurse. I did mention that I worked at DCH some years back, but I am a registered nurse, and I still work with the public health wellness program with a wonderful group of ladies, and we go into the schools and facilities to perform wellness screenings, and so I really enjoy that. I do that 2 or 3 days per week, and so I really enjoy that getting out and meeting. We meet a lot of interesting people, work with a great group of ladies. My children, I have 2 sons. I mentioned James, my youngest son, in the last video, but I did not mention Tracy. Tracy is my oldest son. I have 2 sons, Tracy Lamont, he's the oldest, and James Christopher, he's the youngest. And then I have a lovely daughter-in-law, Pamela. She's married to Tracy, and Pamela and Tracy have 2 daughters. They're young adults, Tracy DeShandria and Brianna Cheyenne. Tracy is in the workforce, and Brianna is a student at Alabama A&M in Normal, Huntsville, Alabama. So those are my children. And also I shared that the start of this cross-stitching journey was because of a beautiful poem that I found that I wanted to stitch for my beloved mother-in-law. And I also mentioned my mother and my father, and they have all passed away. But I did not mention my loving father-in-law. He is still with us, and he is doing very well. And so I wanted to mention him, James J.C. Carter. And so that's my father, and so I didn't mention him in my first video, and so I wanted to acknowledge and honor him in this video. Let's see here. So yeah, my youngest son, my father-in-law is James Calvin, and my youngest son, that's his namesake. So it's James Calvin and James Christopher. So I wanted to give some shout outs to some Flosstubers that I watch, and I just made a list of just a few. This by no means complete the list of Flosstubers that I watch, because I tried to give them all some love, and I just love watching them and love seeing their work and their progress and the taste that they stitch. And so I'll make another list in my next video. But today I'd like to mention Shiloh X Stitch MD. She is in Nova Scotia, Canada. And she is an amazing stitcher. She does a lot. She's stitching a full coverage called Bewitched, and I hope I'm watching her video when she finishes that, because she's getting near a finish and it's absolutely amazing. Annie, the Proper Stitcher, she films on Friday, and her video would usually pop up on Saturday mornings when there was nothing on TV to watch, and I would watch the Proper Stitcher, and she always encourages us to fully finish our projects, and so I appreciate her for that. And so, as I said in my first video, I want to become better at fully finishing my projects or getting them fully finished. Liz and Deb, the Country Stitchers, I watched them back in 2020. They were one of the first Flosstubers that I watched, and I watched them for a while. And then as things happened and life unfolded the way that it did, I got away from watching Flosstube. And so, but I do still watch them. They're amazing stitchers, and they're a lot of fun to watch. Jan Hicks of Jan Hicks Creates. She's also a designer, and I watched her also back in 2020 when I first discovered Flosstube, and so I enjoyed watching her. I want to give a shout out to Christy and Callie, the Floss Boston cousins, and they are from Alabama, and so of course I want to shout them out. Also from Alabama is Sarah her channel is Handmade by Sarah W, and she is also from Alabama. And I also watched Chris Cross Stitch, and he has connections with Alabama as well. And so I am in Alabama. I think I mentioned that in my first video when I showed the Alabama pattern that I had stitched with Hermello. And so those are the Flosstubers that I will mention today. Like I said, I watch many of the wonderful Flosstubers, and it's just a great community. And so I want to also mention Jackie she's one of the Project Horseshoe Farm Fellows, and she is my health partner for 2023-2024. And so she came in June as Hermela was leaving and finishing up her tour. Well, she came right in, and she wanted to learn to cross stitch also. So I had her had the project that we had done in my hand, and I realized that I didn't have the second project, and so that's when I ended my first video. So I want to share our first project. When Hermela was here, she did the H and I did the P. And Hermela is in medical school in Augusta, Georgia, and she has her H fully finished and displayed on her stand, and so that made me very proud. So Jackie came, and we could not find the J pattern, so she said, well, I'll do the C. She said, my last name starts with C, and my name is MsWillette Carter, so my last name also starts with C. So we did the C. I don't know if you can see that. I'm getting some glare. So yeah. So that was her first project, and she did an amazing job. We sat down at the table and did a few crosses, a few X's, and we had met on a Thursday afternoon, and when she texted me Monday to determine when we would meet the coming week, she said that, she said, I've already finished my pattern and I can't wait to show it to you. And I was like, she finished her pattern. And sure enough, when we met that Tuesday, she had her C and she did a beautiful job. And so she went right ahead and picked out her second pattern. And let's see, I don't have things quite in order here. I thought I did. So this was her second pattern. That was a lot of stitches. But she finished it up in about a week. And hers turned out so beautifully. I thought, oh, I'm gonna stitch that. And so I got out my colors. Our colors are just a little bit different, but this is the pattern that she chose for her second stitch. And so this is the same pattern that I stitched. It says bloom. So I was searching for the pattern, and I came across this freebie from, I believe it's Jan Hicks. Jan Hicks Creates. So that was, and I thought that was a lovely pattern, and I love that. And I finished that up just Sunday. Took me a little while. I guess I was working on some other things, but I like that one as well. So I have seen a number of other bloom patterns that I'm planning to stitch as well. So like that. So in my last video, I talked about my very first stitch, and I showed you that sweet little pattern. Let's see. God bless. And as I stated, I had not come across the actual first stitch. So this past weekend, I was doing a little rummaging, and okay. I actually found it's the same pattern, but this is the one that was actually my very first stitch. And so when I'm back at Hobby Lobby, I'll pick up another frame for that one, because I really have been enjoying my sweet little frame, and so I want to get this one framed as well. So okay, let's see here. Having a little trouble with the position of my camera. But I began to stitch little encouraging patterns that were encouraging to me along the way. And so I shared in my first video project that I did in June for this cross stitch camp, which was Cuckoo Bird Sampler. By Hand and Heart. And so that was a sweet little sampler. A really fun stitch. And that was my June project. Then for July, I stitched Old Glory by Little House Needleworks. Little House Needleworks. And again, that is Old Glory. So in July, I would have been my anniversary, July the 6th. And I had picked out a pattern that I wanted to start on July the 6th, but I had it in my Amazon basket and I didn't order it. I removed it from my basket, and when I went back to place the order, I could not find it anywhere. So, but I really wanted to do a start on July the 6th. So I was watching Flosstube, Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch, and she had stitched this pattern. Designed by Teresa Kogut. And I thought, oh, that is so cute. That is really, really cute. I said, I think I can go through my floss stash and I'll be able to come up with some rainbow colors. It says create every day. And so I started this on July the 6th. Was my anniversary start. And so I love that little pattern so well that I have stitched it twice. Again, I'm forgetting to share the floss and fabric that I'm using, but I will. I have it right here for this one. This is a 28 count pearl Jobelin even weave, and I like this fabric, and so it's just the same pattern. I stitched it twice. I really like it, and so it's just a fun stitch. It's a nice relaxing stitch. I'll thread me up 3 or 4 needles of that color, and sometimes late at night when I'm watching TV or listening to Flosstube or watching Flosstube, it's a very relaxing stitch, and so it requires some counting, but it's a very relaxing stitch, and so I did that one again. And also in July, we saw this one in my first video, and this is Merry and Bright. Merry and Bright, and this was a stitch along that was started July 11th. It was sponsored by Fat Quarter Shop, and it was called the Evergreen Mystery Stitch Along. And I wanted to bring it back because I was trying to share about it and I couldn't get my words straight. And so they delivered it to us in quadrants, 4 separate quadrants. And so, in their pattern, the star was stitched in pink, but I decided to go with the gold or the yellow. These are Week Style Works flosses. And this fabric is 28 count platinum linen from Stitched Mortar. And I love stitching on that fabric. I love stitching that pattern. And so that was done over the course of a couple of months because it was a lot of work in stitching those gifts at the bottom. But I love this stitch, and I look forward to getting this framed and displayed this Christmas season. So excuse me. So I spoke about Eliza's French birds. I had planned to have this to show in my first video because I stitched it. This was my Mother's Day start. Of course, on Mother's Day. And it was a stitch along. It's entitled Eliza's French Birds, and there was a sale going on, a stitch along going on, and I heard it from Annie the Proper Stitcher, and I thought, well, that would be a nice little design. Sorry about the glare. To start on Mother's Day. So I did. And for that, I used or for this, I'm going to show you. I use the Call for flosses, which were a combination of DMCs, was a combination of DMCs and classic colorworks. And that is Eliza's French birds. And I really love this little pattern, but I decided to, it was my Mother's Day start, and so I decided to stitch my mother's name. I am going to restitch this one because I do like the actual design with Eliza at the bottom and the date. Oh gosh, I'm getting a lot of glare today. Like having my mother's name in there. I actually stitched it and I wanted to put 2023, but it wasn't giving me enough space with the fonts that I had chosen, so I stitched in my mother's name, and then somewhere in here I have the date and my initials. Right here, I stitched in the year because I used to date my projects years ago, and then somehow I got away from that. And so when the year came in and I was stitching my Christmas ornaments, I thought, well, I want to commemorate 2023, so I started stitching in the date on all of my Christmas ornaments that I had done, that I was in the process of doing for this year. And so then as I stitched other things, I began to date them again. When I brought out my patterns or my projects that I had done for my mother and my mother-in-law, they were done in 1987, I believe, and they were dated. And so I don't know, somewhere along the way I stopped putting in the date, and so I have gotten back to that, including that somewhere. And I did August. This was my August camp pattern, Blackbird, which is just one of my favorites. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. And so that was my August pattern. Okay, I have here a number of stitches that I stitched just to share. Now these were not stitched in 2023. These were, they are not dated, so I'm not sure, somewhere in 2018, 2019. But I was in my rummaging phase and I came across these two. This one had already been finished, And I really love that. Mother is another word for love. And there again, my mother's name is Sarah. So this was the actual pattern. Well, actually, this border and this border, it just said mother is another word for love. And then it had the long border to finish it off, but I put in the short border and included my mother's name, and then stitched in the border at the bottom. Now, before 2023, I only stitched with DMC floss. And now that I've said that, I may have to take that back, because as I study some of my older projects that I had finished, and when I used to go into the local needlework shop in Tuscaloosa, the attendant there would help me pick out different flosses for different types of fabric, but mainly I stitched with DMC. I had not heard of the overdyes and the silks and all those until I started watching Flosstube. And so these are a selection of DMC flosses. And this is a 14 count white Ada. And so I had a big laugh with one of my classmates. She had called me, and I had found this, and I had seen this, and I had been admiring it. And I was sharing with her that I had a birthday coming up and how old I was. And I said, but I miss my mommy. And so we had a big laugh about that. And she said, yeah, she said, you were the baby. And my baby brother is Cletus. And she said, Cletus booted you out the baby spot. And so anyway, I had a birthday, and he's going to celebrate a birthday on the 28th. And so, yeah, that is in honor of my mother. And this was one that I started, and I had gotten down to these two flowers, and for some reason I just could not find the color of floss that I thought was coordinating. And so this is on 14 count oatmeal with the selected DMC flosses, and it says the Lord is good and his love endureth forever. The Lord is good. I love stitching baskets and flowers, and so I said, why did you leave that undone for so long? So I took it out that very night and stitched in the 2 or 3 little flowers that were missing in. So like that. So another pattern that I did, and I've stitched it twice. So as I mentioned earlier, when I met with Jackie, we had some floss and we had needle and fabric, and she did a few stitches, and when she told me that she had finished her C. I said, well, where in the world did she get supplies to? She had the piece of fabric. I said, where in the world did she get supplies to floss to finish it? She had gone to our local Dollar General. I didn't even know Dollar General had floss. And so I went in and I found the floss that she had purchased, and it had the colors. I had seen this little pattern, which was very colorful, and I had always wanted to stitch that. And so, as I stated, it's been somewhat of a very difficult journey, and this is losing my mind one stitch at a time. But in all fairness, I have to say that stitching has been a great source of comfort for me, and so it really brings me to a place of calm and a place of peace. But I did like this little pattern, and so I stitched it with the floss, and it's called Crafter's Choice. It is not DMC, and it's sold at Dollar General, and it's called, but it's really pretty, and it's really nice to work with. And so I stitched it in that brand of floss, and then I stitched it again with some Weeks Dye Works, the over dyes. And so really pretty, really colorful. And so I'm going to take this to Hobby Lobby and see if I can find a frame or some type of board to display that on. And was watching Sherry, the Colorado Stitcher, and she had stitched this little pattern, and this is more of says, in the rhythm of the needle, there is peace for the soul. And the minute I saw that, I said, I'm going to have to stitch that and finish it up for my first video. Now, I've purchased some fabrics, some coordinating fabrics, and I want to turn this into a little pillow. I have a sewing machine here, but I don't have it set up yet. And so when I get that set up, I will stitch this and make me a little pillow. But such a sweet little pattern, and such a true statement for those of us who love the craft of cross stitch. In the rhythm of the needle, there is peace for the soul. And another, I like this one. Take each day one stitch at a time. And so I love stitching patterns that encourage stitching. I love stitching patterns that have needles and scissors, and I changed the color. I think this in the pattern, it was the handle of the scissors were stitched in the lavender, and the threads were like an aqua or green. But my mother always had a pair of large scissors with black handles, and so I stitched those in honor of my mother. And I really like that. And I have a little box here that it looks very pretty in. I picked this up at Dollar General. It says calories don't count on the weekend. But this, that gray was very pretty with that. And so I want to get this trimmed down and finish it and display it in this little frame. That's and also from Sherry the Colorado Stitcher, a pattern that she designed. And that is a very true statement for me. Stitching makes me happy. So I saw that one. And this is 14 count white Ada. And I think this is DMC 321. Now I was watching Handmade by Sarah W. and she stitched this in blue, and she has made it into a crafting mat, and it's really, really awesome. And so I'm not sure. I think I'm going to make a little pillow or pin keep, but we will see as the fully finishing evolves. But I like that one as well. Of course, I like all of my stitching. This I had on my radar for a long time. This Quiet Please Cross Stitcher at Work. The Queen of Cross Stitch has a crown there, and scissors, and I included a needle and thread. That will go in my craft room. I'm thinking about framing this one. And this one that I did for my mother, or in honor of my mother, I want to get just a sweet little white frame to frame this in. So I'm gonna be on the lookout when I'm in Hobby Lobby again and see if I can come up with a white frame for that. And this was a sweet little pattern designed by Judy of JBW Designs. And she designed this for stitch along with the common threaded stitchers. That goes with my Christmas ornament finishes. And so, as I said, I was going to stitch 52 ornaments in the year of 2023. And then I would take out my sewing machine and my crafting supplies, and I would prepare to fully finish them. That's kind of how I had that planned. So it's a cute little stocking of a Christmas town with houses and trees and churches and different little things that make up a little town. So I enjoyed stitching that. And as my channel name goes, I'm the switch stitcher. I switch flosses, I switch fabrics, I sometimes stitch in hand, but I also use hoops. And so when it comes to my beverages, I'm also a switcher. I like green tea and I love coffee. Or I love green tea and I love coffee. So when I saw that, it says tea or coffee. And it has the green tea leaf and the coffee bean. This is stitched on 14 count white Aida, and these were the variegated DMC flosses. So, love that little stitch. Okay. And have those two. Those will be the last one. So I have a few starts that I want to share. This is Birds and the Bees. Birds and the Bees by Heart in Hand. Also a stitch along that I saw introduced by Annie the Proper Stitcher. And this is being stitched on 28 count lamb's wool Jobelin from 123 Stitch. And I am using the call for colors with the that came with the pattern. That's recommended by the pattern. And this is my progress. This was started on August the 6th. And it somehow gets pushed aside. It's a sweet little stitch, but I'm coming along on my lettering. And then I'll get into the flowers and the beehive. I think this is what it is. Birds and the Bees. This has a little bird and has bees around the honeycomb. Little flowers here. So it's going to be really cute, really pretty when it's all done. And I may take this on my trip with me and get some work done on it. So it may travel well. in my first video, or part one of my first video, I mentioned my birthday starts that I had planned to start, and I did start them, but that's pretty much all I have. Ink circles. This is also entitled The Birds and the Bees by Ink Circles, but it has birds, but it does not have bees. So I really enjoy this, and but that's my start. I just got a little start in the left hand corner. So, but I'm looking forward to getting that stitched up for my blue room. Not very much so far, but I'll bring it back and share my progress in upcoming videos. And my second birthday start was My Heart Can Rest by Blackbird Designs. And it's also my September sampler start. So I will. I did get a few stitches, just a few. Pretty colors. I'm using the Call for Colors from Classic Colorworks, and 2 are from Weeks Dye Works. These are the colors, and this is the fabric. So I think it's going to work up really pretty, but I just got a very, very tiny start. And I probably would have been just a little bit farther along, but I end up having to frog probably more than that because I had not given myself enough water. Because I had made adjustments, but then it actually goes out farther at the bottom. So when I realized that, and thankfully I realized it early on, and so I took out the stitches I had put in, but I did get them back in on September the 12th. So it is in fact a birthday start. So I'm true to that. And as I mentioned earlier, Shiloh with X Stitch MD. I was recipient of one of her giveaways. And so again, I want to shout her out. She's an amazing stitcher. And this is Love Spoken Here by Lottie Doll. I have not chosen my colors, but I have my fabric here. Let's see. This is the 32 count platinum Belfast linen. 32 count. Now that will be my first stitch on a 32 count, but I'm looking forward to stitching this, but I may change up the colors a bit, but I'm also thinking of making a family tree out of this and putting in either the names or the initials of my parents and siblings. So I'm looking forward to getting this one started, and this may be my November start. But thank you again, Sila. That was very sweet and very kind. And I think I have just one more that I want to share. So I can see it. Maybe I did not bring that out, but I'll just go ahead and speak about it. So I have to get all that back together. But on August the 8th, on August the 28th was my mother-in-law's birthday, and I've heard a lot of stitchers talk about doing ancestry samplers, and so I decided that I'm going to stitch a sampler for my mother-in-law. So I started her sampler on August the 28th, and my goal is to have it finished before January 5th, because January 5th is my mother's birthday, and I want to be able to start hers on her birthday. So that is my goal, and my intention was to have it here on my table, but I don't, and so I'll plan to show that in my upcoming video. And we're going to show these last two, which is from A Stitcher's Heart, and then we're going to conclude. So I'll stitch this one. This is one of my favorite sayings. I cannot count my day complete till needle, thread, and fabric meet. So this is 14 count oatmeal and just a choice of selected DMCs that I took from my stash to match it up. But I love it. Want to make a pillow from this one. And I really like it. Okay. So, same sentiment, different pattern. I believe this is the Lizzie Kate design. They may be both Lizzie Kates. I'm not sure, and I don't want to say that, but this is so. And that is what I do. I stitch. I cannot count my day complete till needle, thread, and fabric meet. So There are several other patterns with this same sentiment on it that I want to stitch, but it's so many things that I want to stitch, and I want to start stitching some samplers, and so we'll just make sure that the rhythm of the needle the needle is in rhythm all the time. And so again, if you found my channel, I would like to thank you for watching. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever I post my next video. And give it a thumbs up if you like it. And I hope you'll like it. And I'll be looking forward to coming back to you sometime in November. I'm not exactly sure how frequently I'll be posting, but I do have plans for a trip in the next week or so, and I will be taking a trip up the East Coast, and I'm looking forward to that, and I hope that it will be an enjoyable experience. And then I look forward to coming back to you, and maybe I can share with you about my experience at Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, and Oaks Bluff, and the exciting things that I'm looking forward to seeing. So have a great day, and thanks again for watching.